Okay, well that's rather an act to follow. Look, my name's Sam Judd. I'm from a charity called Sustainable Coastlines. We've started off with a really great overview of some of the scientific challenges that are going on and some of the policy challenges that are going on, and there's a lot of discussion in this report around policy and seeing how we can improve what's going to happen with the management of our oceans. From our perspective, we're a relatively small organisation, and we work on policy in a slightly different way. We work from the very bottom going up. So we don't advocate for policy formally as an organisation, but we establish results on the ground. So since we started 6 years ago, we've motivated over 40,000 people to remove more than 1 million litres of rubbish from the coastline. And that number's a bit old actually. We've now planted more than 22,000 trees because we started looking at the water quality challenges that are happening. We started in the Galapagos Islands, which is one of the most beautiful areas of ocean that I've ever been, and it inspired us to do what we're doing right now. We then got back here by hitchhiking home on sailboats and ran a large-scale coastal cleanup event out on Aotea, Great Barrier Island. We picked up 2.8 tonnes of rubbish in 2 days. We went back there 1 year, almost to the day later, and got 3.1 tonnes of rubbish off the same stretch of coastline. All of that rubbish is pouring out of Auckland City, out of our stormwater drains. About 85% of it comes from the land. That's similar to the world scale of it. When we saw that we'd picked up 300 kilograms more, we realised we were an ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. What's the point in doing that? There was more rubbish arriving from the city. We weren't comfortable with that, so we decided to build a fence at the top, and we started educating people. So we went round schools and we did educational presentations. Then we started doing the same educational presentations in businesses, and businesses started paying for us to go and take them out and clean up the beach. And we turned it from a bunch of volunteers into an organisation that I'm relatively proud to say we have 9 staff now that's working on these causes that are plastic in the ocean and water quality. So we keep it very, very simple. With touching with these different people that we're working with, particularly youth, you've got to keep it simple and make it digestible is the way that we decided we would approach it. As soon as it gets too complicated for people, they start to glaze over and switch off. So we pick up rubbish off the beach and we plant trees next to the waterways, but we shifted towards an educational focus, and we've now delivered presentations to over 110,000 people. We started these 2 platforms to deliver that educational message. Very simple: love your coast, love your water. That was because you look back at this, no one really understands what that means. We didn't even really understand what that means. We just thought it sounded pretty good, and we liked the logo. But then we realised that doesn't actually mean anything, but whereas this is actually asking people to do something. It's a lot brighter, you can see the colours, it's a lot easier to look at if you're a kid. We developed those platforms. This one's being launched this year, and they help people to run events and they help people to deliver educational programs. We're now changed strategically to become a capacity building organisation. So we train people in how to get up and do presentations, and we train people in how to run events. That's how we decided we can try and have the biggest reach that we can. So I'm here to talk about practice, like doing stuff on the ground and trying to make it go big. Now, we know that the issue of plastic in the ocean is affecting the marine environment. This is very obvious when you see some of the photos that I'm going to show you, but the problems start up on the land. We decided we needed to prove it. This was our form of science. We went down Queen Street with a pool scoop and a high-vis jacket, pretending that we were working for Auckland Council. If any of you work for Auckland Council, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to pretend to be you, but it worked, right? We went down there with road cones, TV cameras, and we ripped the rubbish out of half the drains. We found that this is the contents of just one drain on Queen Street, and it matches up very, very similarly to the statistics of the rubbish that's on the beach. It worked. This lasted in the media for a very long time. It was on the TV3, it was on the Herald website, and the next day they published it in the paper because of this photo here that we took. 137 pieces of plastic in just one drain. Now there's over 100,000 of those drains in Auckland Central, over 400,000 across Auckland region now, the Auckland Council area, millions across New Zealand, billions across the world. And in places where there's no stormwater system, it's just going into the streams. So on a world scale, you can see in white the areas where there's a very high concentration of plastic in the ocean. We use this and we talk about the ocean currents and where it's all congregating to explain how bad it is on that world scale. But the solutions come back to that drain that you live next to and that basic connection that the street is going to the ocean. So this is what we really drill into the kids, to get them to understand something very simple like plastic doesn't biodegrade. And if you drop it on the street, you may as well have thrown it on the beach. Now I know that none of you guys, I'd be very surprised if any of you drop rubbish on the beach, right? Do you even see that very often? Not very often. Kiwis love the beach, right? It's where we go with our families at Christmas time. We take photos of our kids playing on the beach. We love the beach. That's why we work on that to change people's behaviour. People love it. They love the coast. You know, millions of us, we love it. We use that connection, that love, to say, well, actually, what you do inland is affecting what's happening on the coast. And we establish that through that love, so it's a positive thing. But sometimes you need to use those same shock tactics. We don't use a lot of graphs and a lot of statistics and things like that, but we do explain this story through images. This image is very likely to change the behaviour of girls. Young girls, they hate seeing dead animals. They do not like it. Simple as that. It is actually harder to change the behaviour of young boys. Turn it into a competition or a game where they have to challenge each other, they're more likely to engage with it. This next one here, and I only didn't have much space, but this next one here is actually the most effective image in terms of memory for primary school students, because we've actually gone out and tested it. We started doing the presentations and then we got this anecdotal feedback from teachers and from parents saying that, hey, my kids are now turning up to my class with a reusable drink bottle and a reusable lunchbox, and their parents are making food for them instead of feeding them packets of chips wrapped in plastic. We were getting this feedback from parents saying, damn you, every time we go to the beach my kids fill up my car full of trash. You've ruined my car. And I'm like, well, that's kind of good. But so we started testing it. We said, well, is this working? And we started using psychologists and the help that we have from them, from a bit of that behavioural science, to say, is this working? And then the results were coming in saying, yes, it's actually having an impact on these kids. So we went to upscale it with those capacity development projects. We then realised that we can't just focus on kids to get this done quickly. These problems are happening very, very fast. We need to go further than just the kids. We need to go further than the converted people, and we started working with offenders. So we have a very close collaboration with the Department of Corrections, and we need to change the behaviour of the adults as well as the kids to get some traction on this. So this next image is the one that is much more relevant for older people, right? This is where we start to see a real problem going on with plastic in the ocean. Now, you walk into a prison or you work with a bunch of offenders who have got a whole bunch of problems, not least in the fact that they're actually serving a sentence. They don't care about birds, they don't care about the turtle that washed up on Motuihe Island with 57 pieces of plastic in its gut, but they do care about kaimoana, and they do care about the health of their families. Now, I'd be surprised if there was anyone here who didn't know someone whose life has been affected negatively by cancer. I certainly, my life has been. I've got direct family that has been. Plastic has poisons in it that cause cancer. All of a sudden, we're talking about poisoning the food chain. We're talking about something that's relevant for those people right there. You might be a person with 10 convictions on your record. You're never going to go out to the Galapagos Islands. You're probably never going to go to the Kermadec. You may never go and swim with the turtle. But you do care about this. So we found a way to get into the psyche of those people, and we're now collaborating with corrections on a big scale, and I'll tell you about that in a second. The hardest group that we found to educate on this problem and to change the behaviour of our kids going through puberty. Do any of you guys have kids that have been through puberty, sort of 12 to 15 years old? What happens during that time is that they become very egocentric, right? It's proven, right? The kids, when they're going through puberty, they start to care about the opposite sex. They start to care about fashion and how they look. They care not about us, unfortunately, or their parents or their teachers. They care about their peers. They go through the stage where they care about each other. They start to notice people of the opposite sex and things like that. What we realised and what we found out from going to some conferences and talking to some great scientists was that there are endocrine disrupting chemicals in plastic. they are mimicking estrogen and they are disrupting the hormonal balance within kids. It's making boys grow up with their penises smaller. It's making boys grow breasts, man boobs, or chesticles is the other name for them. We start talking about that to a 14-year-old boy, and then they start to care, right? They care very, very much about that. And actually boys and girls care about that, right? No one wants that to happen. Now with girls it's even more serious, because girls with too much estrogen mimicking chemicals in their body, they go through puberty early and they can become infertile. Now I've got a baby daughter, right? Now I'm standing there in a prison, I was doing this last week at Paremo, educating inmates. When you're in that situation, you really care about your whānau, right? Your family. That's what they all miss the most. Whether they're alive or dead, that's what they miss, is their family. And when all of a sudden I'm saying that this crap that we're dropping in the ocean is affecting my ability to be a grandfather, I get very, very serious about this at that point. And that is why I take the time out of my day to stand here and talk to you guys about it, because I will not rest until I see change on this. I am hooked on it now after finding out that it could impact my ability to be a grandfather. Now I'm talking about something that is very wide-ranging. This is not about some far-off ocean out there. This is about my household and my life. So it's relevant. So where we've got to on the waste side of things is that we're actually building an education centre down on the Wynyard Quarter over here at the moment. We're doing it in prefabricated sections out of shipping containers that are being fitted out in Paremo prison. So we have worked with them for long enough and with good enough results that we've built up an area of trust that we can work with a prison where they're actually educating prisoners, which reduces reoffending. So where we've got to on that policy idea is, like, everyone on the left side of the spectrum, they're always going to support us, right? Because we're doing stuff on the environment and social things. That's a given. That's not actually our target market. Our target market is the unconverted who don't care about that stuff at the moment. And when you talk to someone on the right side of the political spectrum about using prison labour, they're like, yeah, hell yeah, prison labour, that's awesome. So you get this space in the middle where they both feel comfortable, right? Because you're getting the economic efficiency from the prison labour. We see it as directly influencing people that we need to influence who aren't otherwise going to be exposed to the message. In the waterways space, this here is the Firth of Thames, and I don't have a lot of time left to go on about this, but we've run 2 large-scale coastal cleanups on this peninsula, this Coromandel Peninsula, around where there's a lot of aquaculture. We picked up 450 kilograms of nylon rope in one day along that coastline. So we've actually seen it with our own hands and eyes of what's going on there. But we also do work on the waterways, because as you can see, there's hundreds of thousands of tonnes of sediment coming out from the Hauraki Plains into the Firth of Thames. Now what can happen, and like Tim would know more about this than me, but you get a lot of this eutrophication, too many nutrients coming in, and it is impacting the ability for the shellfish to grow. Now, will we see a change happen when the dairy industry and the land use over here has an impact on aquaculture, and will that start to shift policy? Maybe it could be something that happens in that industry space. From our side, we work on producing as many trees as we can and planting them next to the waterways. And this is actually a new project which we've just had funded, which is building a nursery at a prison, at Waikeria Prison, and planting out all the waterways within those prison grounds. And the aim is then to produce more trees through those nurseries where the inmates get qualifications while they're growing those trees, and then we take them out and plant them with schools and bring the images back and say, hey boys, look what you've achieved with your time while you're locked up, and they get a qualification. So we're working on ways to create the efficiencies economically, improve something that then can be, rolled out after that. And if anyone wants to help us, we'd love some help, because it's quite interesting work. We need help from science, we need help from, anyone who's motivated and wants to get up and do something. I guess the story is that we started 6 years ago in the middle of the worst economic downturn of a generation, and we have fought, and we now are growing to a space where we're building something on some of the most valuable land in the country down here, and we're going to grow thousands and thousands of trees in these prisons, and we've done that on the sweat of an oily rag. So, these things can be done. We just got to think about clever ways that we can solve these issues and bite them off in sizable chunks and then spread them, you know, scale them up. So any ideas, I'd love to hear them. Thanks for listening to me.